Good afternoon. That thing makes me feel comfortable. So the first thing that I want to share with you is a confession. I am a horrible cook. I once had a little jive in the bedroom with a beautiful woman on one of those romantic rainy afternoons. And I thought to truly impress this woman, I should treat her to some home-cooked food. Now, I had learnt a recipe from a chef a year earlier in Greece, which involved vodka, salmon, and some fire. So I got down to business. I was standing in the kitchen with no shirt on, and everything was going really well. The salmon was smelling great, and it got to the point where I had to light the vodka on fire. So I got the lighter, and I went in really confidently, and next thing I know, there's an enormous flame engulfing the front side of my body. Now, those of you who haven't noticed, I am a fairly hairy man. And when that hair invites flames to the party, everything goes pear-shaped. Furthermore, if you don't know what burnt hair smells like, let's just say that she wasn't into heavy breathing anymore. Forgot my clicker. So I thought this would be a nice little story to break the ice, but it's certainly not what I'm here to talk to you about. Despite my pretty damn poor kitchen skills, I actually want to structure this next story that is, in a way, like a cooking class. I will present, I'm going to try and redeem myself, I'm not going to burn myself. I'm going to present a list of ingredients and a method, and that will lead to a final meal, an outcome. And then at the end of it, you can decide whether this is your plate of spaghetti or not. And the first thing, and I'm going to call this cooking class Jack of all masters. And ingredient number one is beliefs. So I was blessed to be brought up by two hippie parents and a very caring sister. I grew up on a lush mountain range on the east coast of Australia, and I spent a lot of my childhood imagining the world breaking into a big war and having to go and hide and live in the trees. I was a very optimistic kid. At one particular age, I, for some damn reason, liked wearing dresses. And I remember a particular scenario when my sister told me to take off one of my favorite, and I burst into tears and made a real scene about it, and I actually have the evidence here. Now, strangely, I don't know why I think this is a good idea. I'm sure all the women in the audience would love a man who burns his chest hair and used to wear dresses. Now, so strangely, this to me was the beginning of a particular way of thinking that my parents were teaching me to be important. And one of the most important points was to question life. Not question the meaning of life, but why it is that we do things a particular way and then often get stuck believing that that is the only way to perhaps prove intelligence, or move forward as humans, or design something, or achieve success, or enjoyment. This became tradition. Tradition for me was to question rules and standards. And I know that doesn't sound as exciting as Thanksgiving, but there is something yummy about it. So ingredient number two would be question regularity. Now, thanks to this way of thinking, I've been in a lot of arguments with people who try to tell me that this is the way that you have to do something, and this is its value, its worth. And one of the biggest ones that I butted up against was working cultures. This is the way that the working life functions, and if you don't like it, if you don't abide by these rules, then you should just go into the mountains and grow some vegetables or hug a redwood tree. So many years on from mountain wars and dresses, I started working as a freelance photographer, and I noticed something very particular about the general working culture attitude towards this industry. If you were a generalist at what you photographed instead of a specialist, people would usually not want to hire you. And they would prefer to hire a wedding photographer for weddings, an architectural photographer for architecture, and so on. That's fantastic if you want to be a specialist, but it's a very hard road for Jack. The perceived value and expertise of someone who did only one thing all the time was greater than that of a person who approaches a subject from an angle which is influenced by multiple methods. And this still applies. I then took a step back, literally, and I noticed the same principles in other areas of the creative industries. Graphic designers, illustrators, art directors, we're all being categorized based on specialization. We're not allowed to be jack of all trades or jack of all areas of creativity. Yet creative people seek inspiration from a multitude of different mediums. Why is this so? Is it the perception that someone who specializes has more experience and therefore there is less risk involved? Maybe. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's what we place value on. Maybe it's our valuing system. So for a few years, I tried to shoot different things to break away from this kind of thinking, and it didn't work. I started multiple websites, but that was like specializing in different areas. It just didn't work. So in 2012, I was completely over this. I thought, you know what, fuck the working industry, the working cultures that currently exist. It can't possibly be the only way or apply to every industry. So in 2012, well, actually, our recipe is now starting to heat up. You can see we've got hippie beliefs, industry values, perception, question regularity, work cultures, radishes. So in 2012, I decided to create a project called The Pixel Trade. And the concept being fairly straightforward. I wanted to try and get to every single continent in the world, 7 of them, without making or spending a cent of money on anything in the process. No buying flights, no buying nut bars, no buying underwear, anything. Now, to achieve this, I would trade. I would exchange my photo services, as I did clients, as I used to do for clients, and in return, people would provide the 3 necessities: food, shelter, and transportation. The other key element was that if I was with a trade and I didn't have one to move on to, the person I was with would have to find me the next person so that there was no gaps that I needed to use money in. I've just started month 23 of the project, and to date have made it to 5 of the 7 continents, some of them numerous times. I've shot over 160 diverse projects, and I haven't made or spent a cent of money. Now, I just want to take a moment to show you a couple of the diverse things that I've been talking about. I've shot everything from fashion labels here in New York to helicopter companies, weddings just, they shot their ears up like gazelles. This was a wedding. So what happens with weddings is now that you don't have a cost for a day and you actually trade with me for numerous days, you have the ability to record this event over a period of time, and that is a very unique perspective. Horse riding companies is another one. Florists, chefs, love trading with chefs. They know how to cook, and they only provide, the things that they're providing, they provide so well. And I can learn new things. Furniture designers as well. Sorry, I got distracted by the furniture. I've traded with online companies, so Squarespace, I did a trade with them, and now they host the Pixel Trade website for nothing for the rest of my life, just in case I want it up there for that long. Cafes and restaurants, this was an interesting project. Try this out. There was a musician in this cafe, this is in Ireland, and it was in a cafe called the Fumbly. And the concept was that he came up with a musical tune, and then we would make a stop-motion video after we recorded his audio to go along with that tune, and the ingredients would play that particular note as it was played, or multiple notes. It was a total headfuck. Dancers, jewelry designers, indigenous communities, even caviar. As you can see, there is a huge amount of diversity that is now coming from this. And so finally, unknown to me at the start, a method that created value, that created value around diversity and took the spotlight away from specialization started to appear. And why? What was different between what I'm doing now compared to what I was doing before? Why do people now value diversification? What is the one element that is missing? It's the absence of money. Money creates a different kind of value, a different kind of interaction with people. One of the only points of tension in the creative process is often money. However, the practice of equal exchange cancels that out, because the two parties, it's no longer it's the two parties that actually decide what the value of the creative output is. It promotes collaboration, and it takes the focus of gain. So the project started out at a pretty slow pace initially, and one of the biggest reasons for this was not having a functional outlet to display the work from. A relevant portfolio that people could assess the quality of the work purely based on whether they liked it or whether it was appropriate for their brand, nothing else. If cost is removed, what the hell else do you base it on? And if time is money, and money is time, as we always say, and you get rid of money, then time pretty much disappears as well. Now, even international, so once I started populating this website, requests started to come in daily because now people trusted the project's legitimacy. They trusted the diversity. In fact, people would come and they would ask if I was willing to shoot something that I hadn't even shot before. And international kicked in much quicker than I anticipated too. Initially, I thought I would have to trade with an airline to try and get from one country to the other. And this would then open up access to new startups or personal projects from people who wanted to have photos done but simply couldn't afford the transport to get from one side of the world to the other. However, a few months in, someone saw it beneficial to fly me from one side of the world to the other to shoot for them. And then groups of friends would start joining together so that I could go and shoot all of their projects, and it didn't really cost them much on transport at all. Now, why? I'm going to go back to why. Why was this happening? We already established that it was the removal of money that really helped that out. It started to create a different kind of system. But what else was going on? Now, this is the fun part. This is like eating popcorn for the first time and discovering that it explodes into something incredible. Or getting into bed with a beautiful woman and... fuck it, I'll just leave it the popcorn analogy. All the trades really had to do most of the time was make the food that they were already making a little bit larger so that they could feed me, just like they were if they were having friends over. They would pick me up from an airport or a nearby place, just like their friends, and they would put me on a comfy couch or in their spare room, just like their friends. I can't emphasize this point enough. This is the mother, the salt or the pepper or whatever that ingredient is that really gets your meal going, hot sauce maybe. The work environment changed. It was no longer a contractor and a client. It wasn't even close. It wasn't two parties thinking about time and money because they didn't apply anymore. The barriers came down, and what you're left with is an interaction with people. Interactions you typically have with friends. That's what trading did. They provided what they already had, and I provided what I already knew. A win-win. I really need you to marinate this thought, because this is important. This is why this has relevance. This is why it's so relevant to the creative industries. Now, I don't want you to get caught up in thinking that yeah, but how can I do this if I have kids or a family, or I need to pay rent or this or that? That's completely fine. You don't have to do this at the same level that I'm doing it at to get the same kick out of it. I'm just showing you this because if this can work, this is an example on a global scale, on a permanent time frame, then it can certainly work on a scale much smaller than this. If you trade with one client a month, or bi-monthly, or half yearly or yearly, you'll start to notice the value of the work environment that I'm talking about, which you create with them. That's what's important. It works. It works. I haven't got to all of the continents yet. I've got 2 more to go, and not many people are going to Antarctica and say, hey, come along, this is going to be fun. But I think I'll get there, and hopefully that's not the proof that you need to actually start applying this to your life. It works. And don't think that you have to do the necessities. There's a girl in Berlin who I traded with, and she exchanges bread in return for something that you're better at than she is. And she integrates that into her life. And we sat down and we talked about this, and she affirmed that everything that I was feeling and discovering on this grand scale, she was getting the exact same thing on a smaller scale. However you can, and to whatever degree, give it a go. So that's pretty much the end of our recipe. If there's an ingredient or a method that you didn't particularly like, change it. As long as you keep the outcome, the focus of what the outcome is supposed to be, if you keep that the same, then chuck in other ingredients, change the method, however you do it. But it's nice that you're thinking about it. Now, I have one final thing that I wanted to do. So I am doing a trade with 99U. And as part of the trade, I am photographing my journey from when our trade began, which was 2 days ago when I was in Istanbul, to all the way to the end, which is on Sunday morning. Now, remember that rule that I told you about before, that if I don't have the next trade to move on to, the person I'm with has to find the next trade? I haven't told Jocelyn yet that I haven't got a trade on Sunday. I'm telling her now. As part of this trade with them, as I said, I'm photographing this entire journey, and I wanted to capture this moment, but in a little bit more of a, let's say, a visually interesting way, something that isn't just taking a photo of you guys sitting there. So in a moment, what I'd love everyone to do is I want you to stand up and turn around and face the other way, the same direction that I'm doing now. I want everyone to do that except for one person. And I need to figure out who that one person is based on how everyone's scattered at the moment. And I think this gentleman in the middle, yes. What I would love for you to do when everyone else stands up and faces that way, I want you to get to a point that is so visually clear to me, and I want you to be so physically loud towards me, even if it's not your personality, just do it. And I think that that's going to make for a pretty epic image. So if we can get all the lights up, and if I can get everyone to stand up and turn around and face away, I'm going to get my camera out. Okay, so everyone that can see the gentleman, don't laugh at him. Actually, do laugh at him if you feel like it. Okay, so what I'd love you to do is just stretch out your limbs and be as big as you possibly can. And just for the hell of it, can everyone just cheer him on? Okay, thank you very much for that, and thank you for participating. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.